What if the answers to our biggest crisis were not in the latest technology, but in the oldest wisdom? Imagine if the key to surviving climate change was hidden in stories told around ancient fires, passed down for generations we barely remember. We live in a time where the climate crisis is no longer a distant threat. It's here. Rising seas, devastating wildfires, melting glaciers, unpredictable storms have become our new normal. Science is clear. Governments are aware. And yet, despite countless global conferences, pledges, and technological innovations, the solutions so far are falling short. Why? Because perhaps we've been looking in the wrong direction. Perhaps we've forgotten voices that once spoke in harmony with the earth. And today, it's time to listen again about the crisis we face. A new perspective. The scientific consensus is undeniable. Human-driven climate change is destabilizing ecosystems at a rate faster than nature can adapt. Reports warn us of crossing tipping points, irreversible thresholds, where change accelerates beyond control. Yet despite billions invested in renewable energy, carbon capture, and green technology, the planet keeps heating up. The truth is, many conventional solutions treat symptoms, not causes. We build smarter machines that still feed the same systems of extraction, overconsumption, but disconnection from the natural world. What's missing from the conversation is a shift in perspective, a recognition that sustainability is not only about science and technology, but about culture, values, but relationships. And that's where an ancient, overlooked wisdom comes into play. Echoes from the past. Indigenous principles for thousands of years. Indigenous peoples around the world lived in balance with their environments. Their philosophies were rooted in interconnectedness. The idea that humans are not separate from nature, but part of it. They practiced reciprocity, taking only what was needed, and always giving back. And they embraced long-term stewardship, making decisions not just for the next season, but for the next 7 generations. Think of the Haudenosaunee Confederacy's 7-generation principle, which urges leaders to consider how today's actions will affect people hundreds of years from now. Contrast that with modern industrial systems designed for quarterly profits. Look at real-world examples. The Maori in New Zealand, whose guardianship principles protect rivers and forests, even granting legal personhood to a river. The Kayapo people in the Amazon, defending vast tracts of rainforest from deforestation by blending tradition with activism. The Aboriginal Australians, whose fire management practices have sustained some of the world's most fire-prone landscapes for millennia. These are not just quaint traditions. They are living demonstrations of ecological wisdom that modern societies desperately need. 3. Practical pathways, ancient techniques, modern impact. Indigenous knowledge isn't abstract, it's practical and proven. Take controlled burns, for example. For centuries, Aboriginal Australians used small intentional fires to clear underbrush, reduce fuel load, and encourage new plant growth. Today, scientists recognize that this practice reduces the risk of catastrophic wildfires, a lesson painfully relevant as massive fires sweep across California, Canada, and Europe. Or consider polyculture farming, practiced by the Maya and many African communities,
where multiple crops grow together in harmony.
Unlike industrial monocultures that drain soil and invite pests, polycultures replenish nutrients and strengthen resilience. Even water conservation holds lessons. In the Andes, pre-Columbian societies built complex irrigation systems that harvested rainfall and spread it across arid lands, techniques still being revived today to combat drought. Modern projects that integrate these methods are already seeing success. Reforestation efforts in Australia, blending indigenous fire knowledge with scientific mapping. Regenerative agriculture in the US, adopting crop rotation and soil care methods rooted in native traditions. Community-led water restoration. In Peru, reviving centuries-old canals to keep mountain villages thriving. The benefits are tangible. Biodiversity flourishes, soils regenerate, water cycles restore, and local communities become more resilient to the shocks of climate change. 4. Beyond technology, a holistic shift. But indigenous wisdom is not just about techniques. It's about worldview. Spiritual and cultural practices shape how communities understand their place in the universe. For many, nature is sacred. Mountains, rivers, and animals are kin, not commodities. Songs, ritual, and stories reinforce respect, gratitude, and humility. This is what modern society often lacks. We chase technological fixes without addressing the root problem, our alienation from the natural world. We see nature as a resource to be used, not a relative to be cared for. Integrating indigenous values invites us to rediscover that connection. It asks us to see the earth not as property, but as family. And that shift could transform not just our policy, but our daily choices, our community, but even our identities. 5. A collective future, action, and hope. So where do we go from here? First, by listening. Indigenous communities are already leading in climate resistance, yet too often their voices are silenced or sidelined. Supporting indigenous-led initiatives, whether through policy advocacy, land rights movements, or grassroots donations, makes a real difference. Second, by learning. We can study and adapt ancient practices in ways that honor their origins, not appropriate them. Schools, governments, and local communities can all integrate this wisdom into education and planning. Third, by living it ourselves. We don't need to be indigenous to adopt principles of respect, reciprocity, and long-term stewardship in our daily lives. Whether it's how we eat, what we buy, or how we connect with our local ecosystems, every action matters. The climate crisis may be the greatest challenge humanity has ever faced, but it's also an invitation to remember what we've forgotten, to value what we've ignored, and to rebuild a relationship with the earth that is not just sustainable, sacred. The wisdom we need is not lost. It's waiting. If we choose to listen, to learn, and to act, then perhaps the stories told by our ancestors can become the guiding light for a future where humanity and earth thrive together.